Hello again, RPS, sixth grade scholars. Thank you for returning. Today we're going to be talking about order of operations, and this is SOL 6.6C. SOL 6.6C, which again is a review, so we're going to go through it thoroughly, but making sure that we remember all of the aspects of doing order of operations with integers. Yesterday, we talked about just integer operations, and you were given three problems to do independently. Here are your answers to those three problems. So go ahead and check your answers. Um, the first one was talking about the temperature. It started at 6 degrees, and then the temperature dropped 15 degrees, which is indicated here, 6 plus a negative 15, which gives us a negative 9 degrees at the end of the day, cold wherever that is. Then we're looking at number four. Number four may have been a little bit more difficult. So it says that Linda climbed a mountain to a height of 2,325 meters above sea level, and Janice hiked down a canyon that is 37 meters below sea level. How much higher was Linda than Janice? So we're looking at the difference between Linda and Janice. So the 2025 was above sea level, so it represents a positive, and Janice was below 37 meters, which represents a negative 37, and we're looking for the difference between the two, which gives us D. Because remember, the subtracting integers mean add. It's opposite, so we have negative 2,325 plus a positive 37, which gives us 2,362. Number five was kind of in two parts, or you could have thought of it a different way. So she started out with the $250 in her account. But for 6 months, she withdrew $30, which means she took out $30, represents a negative 30. Negative 30 times 6 gives me a negative 180. And therefore, we start out with the 250, we add or subtract that negative 180 and get $70. Or you could have just simply said, well, she had $250. Let me subtract $30 each month for 6 months, and I will still come up with $70 left. So great job on your independent practice. So today, I will be able to simplify numerical expressions involving integers. So we're looking at order of operations. So we're going to look at this quick video, and you're going to pause it to ensure that you do the questions that you need to be done on your paper. So you will need your notebook and your pen and pencil today.
What? Still searching YouTube for math help? Are the videos from 2006 really helping? Hello, this is Mr. Buffington, and we are looking at order of operations practice questions with integers. Couple of things that you're going to expect. I'm going to do an overview of order of operations, give some examples, and while we're going through the examples, I'm going to show a couple of common errors that people make with order of operations, specifically using integers. Quick overview. The order of operations include parentheses or grouping symbols. Anytime there's a grouping symbol, you simplify what is inside the grouping symbol first. Once you've simplified everything that's inside of grouping symbols, you move on to any exponents. Once you've simplified exponents, then you complete any multiplication and division. This gets done in order from left to right. So if there's division first, you do division first. If there's multiplication first, you do multiplication first. It does not go multiplication, then division. It's one step, starting at the left, moving to the right. Then we have our addition subtraction in the same way. So after all the multiplication and division are done, then we move on to any addition subtraction, starting at the left, moving to the right. Now it's time for some examples. So I've got my order of operations listed over there on the left, and here's my first question. Negative 3 plus negative 2 minus negative 5 plus 5 squared. That was a mouthful. Pause the video, try that one out, and then come back and I'll show you the full solution for it. Did you pause? Okay. Are you back? Let's do this. The first step for this, although there are 3 sets of parentheses, none of those operations are simplifying things inside of the parentheses. So we actually don't have any grouping symbols we need to simplify. So we're going to move on to exponents for the first step of solving this. So there it is. We have our exponent 5 squared, which is 5 times 5, and that gives us 25. The next step, after we've taken care of the exponents, is that we move on to multiplication or division. Now, it might not seem like there is a multiplication or division question here, but this is a common multiplication question, is right in this area. This means negative times negative 5. And I like to simplify that into being a negative times a negative gives you a positive. Whenever I see that minus negative, I simplify it down to being positive, and this is the step where I would do that. I want to emphasize at this point that that is multiplying. Minus negative becoming a positive is multiplying. One common thing that people misunderstand is they think that all of this, like every time you see a set of parentheses, that's part of the first step of order of operations. And it's important to note that the operations are the things that are in between those parentheses. This step of parentheses or grouping symbols is to simplify everything inside of those grouping symbols. Right now, we don't have anything to simplify, so we are not at the parentheses step, even though there's tons of parentheses throughout there. Just wanted to point that out. Now let's look at what we do have left. We have negative 3 plus negative 2 plus 5 plus 25. All of our operations are addition. So we're going to start at the left and move to the right, adding in order. Negative 3 plus negative 2 gives us negative 5. Negative 5 plus positive 5 gives us 0. And 0 plus 25 gives us 25. That step at the end was just all adding. It is important for us to remember the rules for adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers, and you see some of those rules here. A negative plus a negative gives you a bigger negative, right? A larger digit with a negative sign there. A negative and a negative, you add the numbers and keep the sign. When there's a negative plus a positive, you find the difference between them. In this case, positive 5 and negative 5 gives us 0. And those are some of the rules for adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers that you need to remember when you're doing the order of operations. Let's go on to example number 2. Here is another order of operation type question that has to do with integers. Pause the video, try that one out. Are we back? Good. Let's solve this. This is an example where we have something inside of parentheses that needs to be simplified. Negative 7 plus 3. Notice the parentheses are around and there's an operation inside them. That's what we mean by that first step of parentheses. So we're going to first simplify that. Negative plus a positive. The signs are different, so we'll find the difference between those two, and we keep the sign of the larger absolute value. Or in other words, there's 7 negatives and only 3 positives. So our final answer is going to be negative 4. Now we have this step. We've simplified everything inside of parentheses. Now we're going to do exponents. 6 to the power of 2, or 6 squared, is simplified to 36. Notice everything else has remained exactly as it is. Now we have the operations of subtraction, 36 minus negative 3. We have multiplication, negative 3 times negative 4, and we have addition, plus negative 4. So we're going to do multiplication first. Negative 3 times negative 4 gives us a positive 12. And this is the way that would simplify down. Negative times a negative is a positive. This is subtraction, so it remains the same. We have 36 minus 12 plus -4. This is the step I wanted to point out when we were talking about the order that you do addition, subtraction, or multiplication, division. Because this is probably the most common error that people make, is that we would do the subtraction first. And again, this is the most common error that I've ever seen with order of operations, because people memorize it in a linear way. They go parentheses, exponent, then multiplying, then dividing, then adding, then subtracting, and they make this mistake. Addition and subtraction are one step, and they get done starting at the left, moving to the right. So if all you have left is adding and subtracting, you start at the left and you move to the right. In this case, we got subtracting first, then we're going to do our adding. And that's an important distinction, so I wanted to point that out using this question as an example. Our next question, the final example we're going to do, is a fraction, 5 minus the quantity of 9 times -3, all over 2 to the power of 3, or 2 cubed. Pause the video, try this one out. Now let's go through it and see if I get the same thing you did. In my first step, I actually did two things, because fractions take up more space. Notice that I simplified 9 times -3 to being -27. I also simplified 2 to the power of 3 in this same step. The reason that I can do that is our third common error, or third common misunderstanding. Fraction bars are a grouping symbol. In other words, it's kind of like we have parentheses around the entire top and bottom of the fraction, and we simplify those basically as soon as we can. So if I can simplify this 2 to the power of 3 right at the beginning, I will. And I'm going to simplify everything on the top of the fraction. So simplifying above and below a fraction bar in the numerator and denominator is part of the first step of solving using the order of operations. So that's another common thing that just needs to be clarified. Next, I will get rid of the minus -27. That is multiplying, and negative times negative gives me positive 27. And that simplifies everything down, because now it's 5 plus 27, and I'm going to get that down to being 32 on the numerator. Notice, again, I've been following those steps, simplifying everything in the top of the fraction and simplifying everything in the bottom of the fraction, basically as soon as I can. Now that I have it simplified as far as it will go, I'm going to divide. 32 divided by 8 gives me 4. Is that what you got? So quick recap, order of operations with integers works the same as order of operations with any positive numbers. There are just more rules to remember, because you have to remember the rules for multiplying and dividing positive and negative numbers, and adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers as well. If you found this helpful, here are some other videos.
And we're going to go through problems 1 through 4. So again, in the learning package, we have the vocabulary that starts out, and then we have some great graphics on what order of operations look like: grouping, exponents, multiplication or division, whichever comes first from left to right, or an additional subtraction, whichever comes first from left to right. So let's look at some of these practice problems. So we have gymnasts. The work of 3 students in Mrs. Ray's 6th grade class is shown below. So we have Abby's work, Ben's work, Sharice's work. So again, we want to make sure this is all written out for us. So all we have to do is follow the work of each of these students to determine whether it is correct or not. So 2 minus 12, I apologize, 2 minus 12 divided by 6 times 2. So we're going to go through order of operations. So we have grouping, no. Exponents, no. Multiplication or division, whichever comes first from left to right. So in this case, it's 12 divided by 6, which gives us 2. Rewrite our problem and bring it down. So we have 12 minus 2 times 2. Again, we go back up to order of operations. 2, we don't have grouping. We don't have any exponents. We have multiplication or division. In this case, we have multiplication. But Abby did the subtraction first. So in Abby's case, her answer will be incorrect. So let's go to Ben's work. Again, same problem. We're going to look at doing the division first. 12 divided by 6, which gives us the answer of 2. And they wrote it down. Ben wrote it down correctly at the next step. Then it goes back through order of operations, no grouping, no exponents. We have multiplication or division, whichever comes first. In this case, is multiplication. Ben did this correctly by multiplying 2 times 2, which gives us the 4, and rewriting the problem. 2 minus 4 gives us a -2. Ben's answer is correct. Then I want to go to Sharice's work just to make sure to see if her answer is correct or not. Again, same problem to start out with. We can see that there's a little change in step 2. So we go to her first step. She looks like she had 6 times 2 was her first answer, or her first step. It was multiplication or division, whichever came first, but she did multiplication first. So therefore, in this case, we want to make sure that we probably already know that is incorrect, but we're going to go ahead with the problem. Because we don't even have to go ahead, because once you do the step incorrectly, your answer may be wrong. So if we go down, she has an answer of 1, but because we did multiplication first, that answer is incorrect. So which student calculated the problem correctly? We have Ben. Yay for Ben. Yay, great job. So what was their solutions? You can see the solutions at the bottom: incorrect, correct, and incorrect. And then identify the mistake that was made. We kind of talked through that already. And remember with Sharice, she did the multiplication, probably because that is the common error. Multiplication came first in the word, but that does not mean it comes first. Multiplication or division, whichever comes first. Addition or subtraction, whichever comes first, from left to right. All right, so this is your turn. Remember, this looks like one of the ones we did on yesterday. What I stated was you want to make sure that you go through each and every one of those problems, writing each one out. So it may be to your advantage to take a piece of paper and fold it into hot dog style. So you have that long fold, and then fold that into thirds, folding it 3 times. So you'll have a paper with 6 folds in it. That way you have a slot for each one of your answers when you're going through this order of operations for this. So go ahead and pause your video and go ahead and solve each one of these expressions. And once you're done, unpause and we'll get started. So here are the solutions, and I just did exactly have your long fold and fold it into 3 so I can have my slots in 6 different components, and drew some lines so I can keep it separated. The first one, the 5 plus 3, that combination, that sum divided by 4, so that's a grouping symbol. So once we do that, then we have 8 divided by 4, and as you can see, then we have an answer of 2. Then we have 7 divided by 7 minus 11 divided by 2. We're going to do the 7 minus 11 first. Gives us a -4. And then we have -4 divided by 2, which gives us a -2. The next one is -4 times the difference of 9 minus 3 divided by 12. So I put a little arrow there because sometimes we forget that the number or the coefficient, the number in front of that parenthesis signs mean multiplication. And therefore, even though once you start solving, you want to make sure you remember to put that multiplication sign there instead of just making it the whole number. Okay, so that's why that's there. But if you go through the rest of it, you can see exactly how the steps went, and we will go through and have an answer of -2. So 2 to the third power divided by -4. Again, 2 to the third power means take that base and multiply it that many times, the exponent number of times. We have 2 times 2 times 2, which gives us a number 8. And we divide that by -4, we get an answer of -2. So this one in the middle at the bottom is the absolute value of 16 minus 18 minus 4. So in this case, that absolute value becomes our grouping symbol. So we have to do the expression within that grouping symbol. So 16 minus 18 is a negative 2. So we're looking for the absolute value of negative 2, which in this case is positive 2, and subtract that by 4, and we get a negative 2. So a lot of different answers, a lot of different ways we can see solutions in this one problem. Our last problem, again, thinking about that multiplication between that, when there's no symbol there, it's multiplication. We go by our regular order of operations and we get a positive 1. So this just easily gives you a way to make sure you're writing everything out. And then we're going to circle or highlight our correct answers based on our piece of paper. So great job. So if we're looking at this one, using order of operations, what is the second operation that should be performed in the problem below? Again, thinking about writing everything out. So if we're thinking about order of operations, we have grouping, exponents, multiplication or division, addition or subtraction, both of those components, whichever comes first from left to right. So I wrote it out just because I love doing the math and I wanted to get my solution. However, the question just asked for the second operation that should be performed to get the answer. So of course, the first thing we would have done was the grouping, which is 10 minus 7. That's the first thing. It asks us for the second operation, which in the second operation, it goes back to exponents. So our answer for this question should be A, because we would have already done the grouping of 10 minus 7. Okay, good job. So go ahead, you're going to do this one on your own. Let's see if you can figure this one out. And then once you come back, we'll see if our answer is correct. 18 divided by 9 plus 2 times the sum of 3 plus 4. So go ahead and get that answered. Pause your video, write it all out. Great job. Your answer for this one should be 16. So your independent practice for today is again coming from the learning package, and we're going to be looking at page 35 and 36. The numbers are below 1, 4, 6, 8, 9, and 10. And again, it's in RPS from RPS Tech. So once you finish those, then we're going to take our time and think about what our next steps are. And I think we are able to, kind of confidently say that we have mastered our objective of the day, which was simplifying numerical expressions involving integers. So you did an awesome job. Don't forget to log into your Dreambox account today. Spend about 10 or 15 minutes working on that. And then tomorrow we will be working on writing. Have a good day.